champagne. Fellas, you are unmuted.
Oh, thank you.
Happy New Year, dudes.
Oh,
Oh, Megan's
Happy
still
New
up.
Year.
She got to go away. There we go.
Get
What's
her
up,
out of
dude?
here. Weird face.
I popped my. I'm gonna put this champagne into a German
How
Stein that
appropriate.
has a certain pattern on it that if you're in the know, you know what that means. You guys have seen that, right? Can you identify the song?
I can't
Oh,
identify
the
it.
song, no, can't see the notes that clearly.
Can't see it. Anyway, how you guys doing?
I'm all right.
All right.
Happy New
Can't complain.
Year. I'm Charles, for anybody who doesn't know.
I'm
Who are you
McCurdy.
guys?
I'm Nathan.
He's Nans. He's Nans and he knows it.
Nans.
Anyway, fellas, it's not Happy New Year. It's fuck you, it's January, which in honor of RLM, I went ahead and wore my Lightning Fast VCR repair shirt. How's your fuck you, it's January going?
It's January. Fuck me.
Okay. Anyway, welcome
It's
to
fine.
Rank 2023. Where you guys need a shot of adrenaline. What we're aiming to do is this is going to be the first week out of probably going to do 50 of these, and our goal is to do as we've been doing over time so far with the Bond movies, as you can see over my shoulder. We've been doing the Bond movies one by one, ranking them as we go. Now the goal is every week about this time, Sundays, 8 o'clock, we're going to be ranking new releases, be they streaming, be they in theaters, whatever we can get our hands on. And we will assemble the sacred list, which right now is blank because it's fuck you, it's January. So we went ahead and checked out this little movie called M3GAN. M3GAN, M3GAN. Which, as per usual, I'm going to... Well, okay, first off, I'm going to read a little synopsis. These are the three main characters. Right there in the middle is a robot doll named M3GAN. On the left, that's Katie. On the right, that is Jemma. And the movie goes thus. Anyway, I already explained this. But in the movie world, we don't celebrate a Happy New Year. We celebrate fuck you, it's January. Champagne, hence the champagne. Because January is notorious for being reserved as a dumping ground for terrible movies that no studio wanted to release the year before. Only this year, FYIJ is off to a bad start because this film, M3GAN, is pretty good. At first, the expectation was, here we go again, another killer doll movie, but this time it's been fused with the classic science fiction machines will kill us all trope. However, instead of Skynet launching atomic bombs, robot armies turning human beings into batteries, or any other dystopian dread of a dark AI-controlled future, this story focuses on a clear and present threat that has already been here for years. Technology taking the place of responsible parenting, especially in a world where it's now normal, unfortunately for children, for both parents to be employed. The story begins with a little girl named Katie who watches her parents die in a tragic car accident. Now orphaned, Katie goes to live with her Aunt Jemma. Once again, Katie, Jemma, doll, got it, good. Aunt Jemma is a successful inventor within the electronic children's toy industry who doesn't have time for anything but work, let alone marriage, romance, or children. Ironically, the very demographic she works so hard to sell toys to. Now responsible for a child of her own, Jemma goes from cool aunt to absent mother overnight. Struggling with this new role and stuck in her ways as a type A control freak, Jemma quickly turns to technology to babysit Katie so that Jemma can complete her work on a highly advanced, revolutionarily human-like interactive doll named M3GAN. After somewhat selfishly testing out M3GAN on Katie in order to impress her boss and greenlight M3GAN for worldwide distribution, thereby showering Jemma in fame and fortune while simultaneously shirking off responsibility for Katie onto a machine substitute, Katie and M3GAN quickly become attached at the hip, as Katie no longer sees M3GAN as machine, but as a very human BFF. Unfortunately, M3GAN slowly but surely turns into a Frankenstein's monster, a creation that has the thinking and physical power to take life without the check and balance of human emotion to value life. As M3GAN slowly but surely begins to protect Katie from environmental threats by increasingly violent means, Jemma attempts to shut M3GAN down. Seeing herself as a better mother than Jemma, the doll ultimately moves to violently usurp Jemma's role as legal guardian permanently. McCurdy, do you know anything about this movie?
I know a couple of things, actually.
I didn't know anything about this movie until a week ago, and now all I know is the movie itself.
On that subject, were you guys aware of this movie before
I saw the trailer
to watch it?
Well, I was on the same boat as Charlie. It's like going into it, seeing the poster. I'd seen the poster a couple, several weeks back or whenever it was. And I just thought, oh, this movie's coming out in January. This is probably going to be a dud. And then I was surprised. But we'll get into that in a second.
I saw a trailer like months ago, and I was like, okay, I'll watch that. That looks interesting. But I haven't.
It's like oh, Chucky, but it's like a gender swap Chucky, I guess. But it's I would
argue it's not Chucky. But okay, so M3GAN.
Totally. I'm saying that's what I seeing the trailer. I was like, it's just a girl Chucky, but it's a lot more than that.
It's not. So anyway, this movie, M3GAN is directed by Gerard Johnstone, New Zealand director. Story by Akilah Cooper and James Wan, and then written by Akilah Cooper. James Wan's producer had come up with the story alongside Akilah Cooper. Wan has directed he's directed the Conjuring films, which also feature Annabelle. He didn't direct Annabelle, but he was producer on, I believe, one of them. And I think he might have produced. I think he produced the last one. So another creepy doll. He also directed Dead Silence, which was his first film after Saw. Another creepy doll. After Saw 2, another creepy doll. And so he has some experience in the horror genre as well as creepy dolls. And so they've made jokes about this in the media as far as him, it's another creepy doll by James Wan. The screenplay was written by Akilah Cooper, and she's no stranger to horror, which you really feel it in this movie. You're like, oh, whoever wrote this knows a lot about horror. She started as a staff writer on many TV shows, including American Horror Story and Luke Cage. She also wrote the 2018 film Hellfest, and then 2021's Malignant, which was also directed by James Wan. Producers Jason Blum of Blumhouse. So like this is a Blumhouse movie. If you don't know anything about Blumhouse, it's like Blumhouse. Am I saying that right? I probably not.
I think it's Blumhouse.
Is it Blum?
Blumhouse?
Yeah.
It's Blum.
But yeah, they're very well known for horror films. I think they've recently changed their opening logo. So when we were sitting there watching the movie, I was like, oh yeah, they've got all these references to all these other horror movies in the intro.
It's very complex now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like
cool.
It's cool. So producer Jason Blum and James Wan chose director Gerard Johnstone for the project because they wanted someone who could handle the black comedy elements of this movie. Because it's like a horror movie. And I wouldn't say it's a comedy horror movie, but it's got humorous things throughout the film.
I was that guy a couple times in the theater, laughing out loud and really hard
about stuff.
Yeah, on that point,
sometimes I'm the only guy though,
it to be funny.
Yeah. I was thinking this was going to be more straight up trying to be creepy horror, but no, there was like funny things in the movie, which I enjoyed. He basically quoted, he said, "We needed someone who could do the thrill and set pieces, but also has a cheeky approach." And I would agree. This movie has that little bit of a cheeky approach. This was what I found was interesting, was this film was originally to be an R-rated movie. This movie's PG-13.
You can tell there's one moment where you can tell they took out an F word. Like you could see that they ADR'd the boss guy, and they took out we're gonna kick him in his effing dick.
Yeah,
and they like ADR'd out the effing.
But so they decided, let's make it a teen movie instead, so we can get a wider audience off this picture. And I honestly think it's fine. It works. Idea. Like I don't think it needs the gore to be a good movie. And obviously, I think people have said, like, after you see the movie, you're like, oh yeah, it doesn't. But they basically edited the movie and then to tone down some of the more violent scenes, as well as reshot some stuff. And then Akilah Cooper did state there's a potential for an unrated version of this film to be released. So we might be seeing like a Blu-ray release of the movie and more like a much gorier film. Thing that I found most interesting was, so M3GAN, how did they pull this off? I mean, it's kind of obvious, but the doll was achieved through several techniques, including a prop M3GAN. So they had a prop version, which I did watch an interview where Katie, the girl who played Katie, was like, I was like sitting in the car actually like talking to her because I thought she was real. Because of how lifelike that the doll is. And then of course they had the thing that if you go online you'll see this, but they have a live acting performance by Amy Donald, and so she wears a costume that has like a prosthetic silicone mask.
Whenever
over
you
that.
see legs, it's like, oh, they just like stuck a head on it.
But then they did Weta, the New Zealand company that good old Peter Jackson created.
I know
Weta. Did all the effects. Weta. They did the effects, and then the voice acting was by another actress named Jenna Davis. Film stars Allison Williams, which she's probably most known for Girls, but I think other people know her from Get Out. She was the girlfriend.
Get Out is what I know her from.
Yeah. Violet McGraw as Katie. She's a newer talent, of course. She had a small role in Black Widow. She played like the younger version of Florence Pugh's character. And then also there was Dr. Sleep that she was in. I don't remember in Dr. Sleep, to be honest. But
the trouble is that, and that's why I look forward to this 2023 experiment, because I don't watch a lot of newer movies because they tend to not be good. But I'm sitting there watching the previews, and I'm like, I'm excited to do this. There looks like there's going to be some good movies this year, probably alongside the usual landslide of garbage. But I'm looking forward to it, including this movie, which again I thought was just going to be a stupid killer doll movie, and then I'm like, this actually has a lot to say.
This will be a
up
fun
until the ending, which is kind of goofy, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then the last was I had two last things, but Charlie, you had already touched on one of those. Ronnie, I think it's Shang. Is that how you say his name? He plays David. He plays David Lin, the boss. He's a stand-up comedian. He was also, I think he was on Daily Show at one point. I thought he was like one of my favorite parts of the movie, honestly. Like he was so
good
funny
in this.
I watched over the top.
I watched 15 minutes of one of his stand-ups, which means I don't have a lot of exposure to him. But those 15 minutes were not good, and I ended up turning it off. So, but in this, I'm like, he's great. I thought he was good, but maybe I need to watch more of a stand-up. But what I saw was like not funny.
Charlie, and you touched on this when we started this, but like, historically speaking, films that come out in January don't usually do well. And that it makes sense because in Hollywood, you always want to put your best movies at peak times when people are going to go see those movies so you can make the most money.
November and December and summer.
Basically November, December, and then May, June, July, basically the summer months for the most part. Those tend to be like where most people are going to see movies. So if you have a movie coming out in December, which is like a Christmas movie, that audience is going to roll over, hence like Avatar, right? Like people are still watching that movie, and obviously it's making billions of dollars at the box office. So to put something out on January just doesn't make sense. So usually people put duds in January. It was just surprising that this landed, and it's already made its money back. I mean, Mans, we also we were joking when we were putting this together that, we don't want to talk about like the box office or how much the budget was. It's boring, but the budget on this movie was $12 million. Like, that's small.
Is that little? Okay.
Yeah.
That is small in comparison to most movies. Like, they don't usually make $40 million movies, which are kind of the mid tier. This $12 million is small for.
What would you say is like, are horror movies generally lower? Obviously than like a Marvel or Avatar. But
I would say, obviously they did a lot of practical effects with her character. Like, there wasn't a lot of CGI, but there was. Just it wasn't as it's not CGI heavy.
No, as I point out in the synopsis, it's small, and it like, again, the point of bringing up other robots are going to kill us all movies is that it's not Terminator, it's not The Matrix, it's not a giant special effects movie. It's a very small movie about a woman who doesn't want to be mom and tries to find a surrogate mom. And I know I'm getting ahead of ourselves, but the point being that it is this smaller thing that arguably the ending didn't exactly stick the landing of those themes, but it wasn't that in the end M3GAN takes control of funky toys and generates an army to go kill everybody on the planet. You know, that would have been your $200 million movie. This is a little family movie.
Yeah, like a James Cameron. We get a Terminator, but they're all M3GANs. Well, there's 6 varieties of M3GAN, right? So I guess
I'd love to see the sequel with an army of M3GANs. But anyway,
I'm curious
is your
what
history
that
complete?
Would be. I would say, yeah. I mean, I have my own personal notes, but we'll get into that when we start talking about our thoughts of the movie. So, Nans, what was your gut reaction of this movie? What did you think?
Well, before I get into that, member shout out.
Yes.
I want to. Yeah, I want to shout out all our members.
Okay, shout out the members, bro.
To anyone that doesn't know, we've been
toast
ranking
to the members.
on movies. We have some live streams, but this is a new project. So if you're new here, welcome. Subscribe, like, share, all that stuff. Our members, though, today are Qwerty Manor, Lemmy is God, Barrel Rider 26, The Entertainer, Spectre Chair Engineer, Huevos Rants YouTube, Dave M, Drink Up 44, myself, P. Wilkinson, Andrew A, K1, SB, who I've seen in the chat. McCurdy,
K1's also in the chat.
I'm just gonna clap for everybody.
Yeah, Travis Coakley, Johan, Nico, who came in with the big donation again. Thank you so much for your croutons,
Nico. This is just gonna stay up all night. This is gonna stay up all night, Nico.
Anyone that's not a member, consider becoming one. We appreciate the support. Again, like, subscribe, super chat. Super chat is what? Is that a live thing? Super thanks is once a video is gone out. I guess.
Super chat and super thanks are the same thing, but a super chat is done during a live broadcast, and a super thanks can be left on any YouTube video. You'll see a button that says super thanks, and it's
if you want
posting a comment that will then be highlighted. So
24/7, join the Discord.
Yeah, all I do is sit here and edit our videos, and then I'm glad to be distracted all day by having arguments about things in the Discord. So if you want to
join the Discord if you want. But
yes,
anyway, McCurdy, to answer your question, the immediate impression of mine was that it was good. I enjoyed it.
Nice and stoic.
And I imagine most people did. I think there's not much to dislike about this movie.
I would agree.
It was a surprise. I was delightfully caught off guard with, this movie has a lot to say about things today, versus by the end it got kind of goofy by the end, but all the same it had something to say about the state of affairs today, and that's always nice in your weird sci-fi robot killer doll movie. But anyway, we don't deal with spoilers. Normally we just
I have a quick question before
this is go ahead.
What would you say? I hadn't really thought of this till your opening remarks. What would you say is like the main theme? Is this an AI movie? Is this a parents and technology movie?
I would say it's parent and tech. So this is what I wrote. This was what I wrote. This is what I wrote. I said, yes, I'm a parent. Okay, so this film was overall a surprise to me. While it plays into the kinds of tropes and cliches you usually see with the evil robot or AI, like, think 20,000 Leagues, 2001: A Space Odyssey or something like that. This film brings themes of parenting and technology to the forefront, which I don't think I've seen in a lot of movies lately. For myself, I have 2 kids. I have a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old. So I could relate. There was many times in this movie where I'm like, I kind of relate to Jemma's issue, because she wants to focus on her own aspirations. She wants to focus on her career. So she has to find a way to circumvent that parenting responsibility, as Charlie points out, by basically creating this doll, which it benefits her. But as the movie goes on, you realize like, this is not good for their relationship, obviously.
Yeah.
So, and this is very similar to today. Like parents are today, we put our kids on front of screen time. Like the word screen time got brought up twice in this movie. And like I myself included, have, fallen victim, or I shouldn't say fallen victim, but like have done this where I'm like, hey, here's the iPad, here's the Nintendo Switch, like go play.
Just go away. Just go away, kid. Yeah.
Go away. I'm doing something. And it's
I'm
hard.
Streaming
like when you're
with my bro.
But it is hard when you are
every single parent is dealing with this issue.
Yeah. It is a an issue that like, and I think it's just we have the technology now to deal with it. When you were like younger, I guess when we were kids, like yeah, we played with our own toys, but we didn't have I don't know, just like toys weren't as cool as they are today. I don't know what
Back
it
then,
is.
it was parents saying, "Go outside, go out."
Yeah, but like but parents now are like afraid. Like for me, I feel weird about having my kids go outside because I don't know the neighborhood I live in. I just don't know the neighborhood well enough to be like comfortable with my kids just hanging outside. So it's just
Yeah.
it's
Mm.
I mean we live in a different time basically, and
And
so
beyond that,
that
though, it's a
but
balance for most parents because if it was just these things are terrible for kids,
mhm,
then good parents would smash them. But there's a balance
yeah,
to strike because I mean, even back in the day, I'd have talks with my folks. Because my addiction growing up was video games. That was my screen time, and the deal was always if your grades ever slip, you can't play. So the deal was you keep your grades high, you can play as many video games as you want, and then I would do that, and then I'd play outside or whatever. But the argument being that there isn't. It's not like video games are completely useless. They actually jump into hand-eye coordination and puzzle solving and things that actually have utility. So, but then now today it's kids having a proper amount of exposure to technology so that they can use it in the future because we use this technology on a daily
yeah.
basis in order to do all kinds of things, including work and school and all that. So they need some of it, but not too much of it. And that's why let's limit it to 30 minutes a day as a
Well,
parent saying
even
in
in
the
the
opening.
movie, like
And then,
even in the
but
movie,
eventually
there's
she's like, you can have as much screen time as, because she's like, what's screen time? I
yeah,
don't even know what that means.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
how long can I play? Oh, you can play as long as you want, as long as you fuck off, kid, because I'm working. And that was
Yeah.
the great part was
Well,
watching her try to cope with that.
that was the thing that but like what you're talking about is like it's a useful tool for kids, right? Like in the movie, we obviously see that Megan has this extraordinary ability because she's basically hooked to the internet and understands how to deal emotionally with kids. And you have this kid who's very vulnerable. Like she has all these special abilities to, you know, treat kids as far as that goes. I guess if that's the right word. And but the problem there lies is like much like me using technology to teach my kids or whatever it is, like there is still I'm letting a machine do that job when I should at least be involved in that process. Do you
Yeah.
see what I mean? Like that's where the disconnect. And that was actually what I was going to say was while the movie has the typical blood and murder like a real horror movie, I think that negligence is
Hmm.
when we sorry, what I was saying. I think it's the negligence we can have when it comes to raising children and how AI could only one day take possession of our jobs and meaning. And like that to me is the real horror of this movie. It's not
Yes.
her slashing and
Yeah.
killing people. The real horror in the movie is like, oh no, this could happen. Like we as a society could stop being parents and like let machines do that job for us. And then like we're missing out on an important connection as we're raising our
Yeah.
kids. Like that
Mm.
was the part that
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this movie has like when I think someone in the chat, SB said something like, "Oh, this movie's Chucky." I'm like, it's not really Chucky.
It's
Like
it's
Chucky's about an
it's
evil
Chucky
possessed
is just a
doll.
slasher.
SP's
It's
just
Yeah,
just
screwing
a
with
Chucky's
us.
an
slasher.
EV possessed doll. This movie
And
has
it's
like a
great, but it's
other
just a
depth.
horror movie. This movie has something to
Yeah,
say. And
yeah,
now let's take a little break though, because I really want to delve into that because that's why this movie is kind of surprisingly good. But
yeah.
first off, just because we're dealing with a new release, just real quick, starting with you, Nans, just so we can get into spoilers and just be free. If
Yeah.
anybody doesn't want to know anything beyond what we've said, go ahead and shut off now, go watch the movie, and then come back and hang out with us. But in the meantime, Nans, would you recommend this movie to people?
I would recommend it.
McCurdy.
Oh yeah, totally recommend it.
I would too. I was pleasantly surprised. It's certainly not perfect, and we'll get into why. But it is. If you're looking to go see a movie
It's
today,
enjoyable.
it's enjoyable and it has something to say. It's not mindless, Chucky blood and just stabbing and killing for no reason. I mean, Chucky's great because it's literally just a serial killer. His soul goes into a doll, so he just kills people as a doll. Fantastic. But this movie wasn't just that. It had something to say about life today, especially as a parent and all that. So that is our warning for spoilers. And then sticking to ceremony, fellas, let me bring up the list. Sticking to ceremony, fellas, does anybody have a proposition for placing M3GAN in the 2023 movies ranked list?
Call me crazy. I'm going to say top of the list.
Top. Nan says number 1. Is that seconded by anybody?
I second it.
Thank you, sir. We put an M3GAN. M3GAN is in the list, fellas. All right, list, you can go away. Anyway, cheers, fellas. That's first one.
Yeah, we did it.
We did it. Okay. So, with the ceremony out of the way, this is definitely something that is so I'm an uncle. I'm not a parent, but I play parent frequently for a whole bunch of little kids. My family has 10 grandkids at this point, even though 2 are still in the womb. Lots of grandkids. And, I'll walk into the room sometimes, not all the time, but occasionally the kids are given their screen time, and I'll walk in, and all of them, there'll be 3 kids on a device. And Uncle Charlie walks in and just says, anybody want to hang out? And to their credit, they throw them the devices. Yay! But it can be kind of scary when you walk in, one kid's on a Switch, another kid's on like a little kid's iPad, not even an iPad, but like an iPad made specifically for kids. It's all colorful and it's got like my niece ran up to me and was like, "Look, I made a YouTube video," and it wasn't a YouTube video; it was an app that helps you make fake YouTube videos that you then submit, and they get likes and stuff. And I was like, "This is weird."
Kid wants to be weird. A YouTuber when they grow up. There's
yeah, but this app was a video game where you would submit it and then it would like artificially go up. And I was like, that's weird. That's already giving you dopamine. So anyway, so the point being that they need these things, but it needs to be curtailed a little bit. And so that's how the movie opens. That theme is established right away because Katie, the little girl, is in the back seat of the car and her parents are fighting over screen time. And the dad's like, whatever, it keeps her docile. And the mom's like, well, I all the same, we should limit it. We should have rules. And, who doesn't agree with that? But every parent will have the same story today, which is, we try really hard, but sometimes you need that babysitter. Sometimes it's just like, you just want to turn the TV on so that the kids will just screw off. And especially when both parents are working, because when it comes down to it, whether it's a device or a nanny, with both parents working all the time, who's raising the kids? And nobody thinks about that until it's too late. Everybody thinks, oh, it's no big deal. No big deal. Maybe I grew up that way or whatever. Until their kids start to act like shitheads. And you see it all the time. You see parents today like, why are they acting this way? Like, because you're never there to correct them. And so now, after years of them being set alone, and now your kids are shitheads, now you're asking why? Well, it's been there the whole time because you have been focused only on working. And so that's the predicament of Jemma in this, is that she's discovering that for the first time. It's like, oh, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? And then it may be a little absurd at times, but Katie starts getting nuts. Like at one point, Katie slaps Jemma in the face, which I remember being like, that's a little much. But then I'm like, but not really. It's really showcasing the addiction that kids have on technology. Like you'll see kids get. Louis C.K. has a great joke where he's like, "Do you think it's healthy that like he's like, have you ever walked up behind a bunch of kids watching TV and you just shut it off? Do you see the way they react? They He's like, how is that healthy? And that's how everybody is. You shut that video game off, and it's like end of the world. It's scary, and that's why something that scary makes a good horror movie.
No, there's multiple times. Like everything you're talking about, I'm like, yeah, I've experienced that. Like even today when we were was trying to get everything together, my son wakes up, comes in, and he's like, he just wants something, and I'm like, okay, go play in your room. He's like, I don't want to play. I'm like, all right. Because if I put him in his room, he's just going to come back to me. So I was like, all right, here, I'm going to put you, you want something to eat? Okay, here's Paw Patrol, and then he's happy. And unfortunately, like everything that Charlie's saying, it's like, yeah, it's just how it happens. Because like, there's times when either it's my daughter, she's had too much of screen time, and then she's just really wound up. So it's like, yeah, this movie kind of hits on all this. But I wanted to talk more
It
about
takes it a step further,
the
though.
movie.
It takes it real quick. It takes it a step further, where it's one thing if you're using it as a distraction, as like turn the TV on, the kids will just be plugged into that for a while, and you can go do your thing. This takes it a step further
all the time
in a very scary, in a way that's very scary today because of how you'll like I'll be watching cartoons with the kids, and there'll be some stuff where I'll go to their parents, and I'll be like, we were watching a cartoon today, and there's some questionable stuff in there, and they're like, that was in a cartoon. Yeah, that was in a cartoon, because the idea being that they're not just sitting there watching Paw Patrol and the dogs rolling around busting bad guys. They have messages being delivered into their brain, and in a way that is there to program them. And so it starts out innocently enough in this movie where Megan is potty training.
That's Katie. Why I don't let my
she's like, Katie, you should watch. Yeah, exactly. And so
I don't want to
point
watch
being
YouTube.
that or like don't let your kids watch the news.
I just don't let her watch YouTube, because I know for the fact if I let her watch YouTube, like it will bump to some other video, and then I don't know what that video is. You know what I mean? So,
but in short, when does the babysitter, who's just there to make sure the kids survive, when does the babysitter suddenly start to subvert what the parents want for their kids? And that's what this presents is, it's like, oh, it's innocent enough. It's like, oh no, Megan's just there to look after her. But eventually Megan's programming her, and Megan's there in the middle of the night, and they don't have a scene like this, and they easily could have, where Megan's there to just be like, your Aunt Jemma doesn't care about you, right? I do. And that's what I mean. When the parents aren't in the room to see what the kids are consuming, what stories and messaging they're imbibing, that's where the subversion comes in, and it starts to program the kids against their parents, and that you definitely see, especially when she literally slaps Jemma in the face and starts getting absurdly violent. It's great. That stuff is great.
Yeah. I think the other thing with this movie is that they specifically were smart enough to be like, let's not be like, okay, there's another version of this movie that I think could have been worse or not as good as this movie. And that version would have been,
Chucky.
It would have been two parents having like, oh, we got this doll for, that just seems so cliche. Like they could have been like, oh, the two parents.
It's Christmas.
Doll.
It opens
like
with
instead
Christmas.
Of her moving in with Jemma, her parents don't die.
It could have been that, which is
replaced
basically
the Furby with Megan.
What was the story? I think I don't know if we had to read it in college, but it basically turned into the Disney Channel original called Smart House. It's based off a short story by I think it's Ray Bradbury, but basically in that story it's a similar type of theme where it's like these parents have the smart house, and then the house basically consumes the parents, and the kids
should kill your parents.
Special house that has like holograms and stuff that they can just go wander off in and stuff. It's very similar to that kind of story. If you really think about it, it's like it's very similar in that regards, is how, oh, it's AI that's for our kids, but this one's like more specific to not just any two kids. It's a kid who's lost both of her parents, and she's like very emotionally vulnerable. And then obviously you have the mom who the aunt who really doesn't, just has no clue. Like she's a robot. She's like this expert robot person, but she has no clue when it comes to parenting or any of that stuff. And like,
did Jemma bring in the psychiatrist, or was that
that was like a court order? It was a court order thing.
The psychiatrist, what was it? Attachment theory or something? It was like you were saying, Jemma loses her, or not Jemma, Katie loses her parents, and then immediately is presented with Megan, so she just attaches to Megan, which is, I don't know, I guess a peer for her, because about the same age, and she's plugged into the internet.
She's just like, oh, I can figure this out. The one thing I was gonna say though, I did like, this is off what we were talking about, but because this was a horror movie, they still had to play into the horror tropes, because we've been talking about the theme for a while. But that was the one thing, as the movie started, I'm like, oh, that dog's gonna get it. Like as the movie was going on, I'm just putting my head, I'm like, who are the victims in this movie going to be? And you could quickly see, because it was like Terminator. Like there was a little bit of Terminator in there where it was like she says like you have to protect Katie, you know, like emotionally and physically at all costs you have to protect her, and you can easily see like, oh, that, you know, that's maybe that could go to an extreme, and obviously in the movie it does. And
Well, that's where, like,
but I
for
kind
me,
of
it
like
kind
it
of gets
because
into
of
the
that.
AI realm, and you get into Elon Musk being like, AI is more dangerous than nukes.
Well, and the thing here is of course that, and like I love any story that is logic versus emotion and the balance of logic and emotion, and so something like this is the trope is always that how can a machine be programmed to value life where and you know, like without opening a massive can of worms, it's like any society that suddenly starts to become too logical, it's like, you know, gotta cull the weak, have to put undesirables in the oven versus a more so like you have science about no, you have a balance of science and religion where science is like, you know, survival of the fittest, so just kill anybody who's below a certain height versus religion that's like, no, we should value human life no matter what it is, you know.
No, I'm laughing at
your
I was laughing at your what you not. I get what you're saying. I'm laughing at
You're
the
laughing
way you
about
said it.
ovens.
It's like, who do we put in the oven this week? Like that's
Like-
horrible.
no,
What
well, okay,
I swear this
but
is
no,
the theme of a movie, though, right? That exists is
tons. I mean, like every
can't
episode
think of it
of
off the
Star
top of my
Trek
head,
is
though.
like Spock and
well, that's why I said
Kirk
2001: A
and any
Space Odyssey.
anything that's
has an
logic
AI.
versus emotion is does it for me. And with this specifically, it's she's got this, you know, whatever, she has to protect this girl at all costs. So of course the logical thing is, even though this boy she murders is like, you know, 10 years old, it's like, well, he's a threat, so he should be killed. But like a human approach would be, well, he's just a boy. He may be a little asshole, but he's just a boy. Or like,
He's
does this
beyond
dog
a little
deserve to die after one infraction or whatever it may be? A human being has the judgment to be like, well, you know, in the future they could improve, but a machine is more likely to just be like, no, you just get rid of the threat. That's what's logical. So just get rid of the threat.
So talking about the movie though, okay. So like, I think you had mentioned as we were talking about it, it's like, I don't know if it sticks the landing, and I kind of agree because there's a lot of like really good stuff, and I think the movie is still good throughout. I'm not saying the movie like misses.
It kept impressing me. I was like, wow, this movie continues to be meaningful.
It's really good. I would say like 2/3 of the movie is really good, but then you get to the end, and that's where I think the movie kind of missed a scene, or there was something that just kind of like it really turns for her. Because
let me backtrack momentarily. Let me backtrack.
I think I know the moment you talk about.
But there's a moment where hold on. There's a moment when they're right when they're about to go on, and then she's like freaking out or whatever.
Yeah,
and that's when she's like,
"Should I be doing this?
Let's just go home." And it's like that was the moment where I was like, I kind of want to say it wasn't earned, but I partly want to say it was earned because girls69.xyz
pornbot in the chat
private photos.
Logical thing is kill pornbot. Must kill pornbot. Logical thing is murder it. Blocked. This time it's girls69.xy.
I miss. What was 69 mega? Was that the
mega
last
something?
Mega 69.
Mega69.com. Yeah. Okay,
that was
McCurdy, let me backtrack for a second. Maybe and then meet back up where you are. Okay. So my whole thing would be that like, okay, it's Blumhouse. They've made a lot of movies like this. They make good horror movies. They allow a couple like typical horror tropes in there with a lot of their movies where like, let's throw some jump scares in, and you know, we all know the cliche with jump scares is that they don't make a good horror movie. They just annoy you. They had two that stuck out, and one of them was good. One of them was the good jump scare where early on that dog jumps up in the window out of nowhere, and there's no musical, you know, that just makes you go stop. That wasn't there. And that was enough to make you annoyed with the dog, which is great. That sets up that, oh God, this dog. But then what I really wish they would have done in an effort to slowly escalate, right? To believably escalate this doll's weird murder spree would be, because the first victim is the dog, right? So the dog bites Katie. So of course Megan's like, okay, this dog has to go. So in the middle of the night, Megan goes out and fakes the voice of the owner because she can do that because she's a robot. Dog comes out of the fence and she grabs him. We didn't need that scene. First off, it had an obnoxious jump scare edit to it with the loud music and the loud music, which is always dumb. But a better movie would have just not had that scene, and the dog would have just disappeared.
Like, I wonder what happened to that dog.
Yeah.
Megan, why is there dirt on your shoes? Whatever.
Exactly.
I will say though, I think it added
minimal.
I think but here's the thing. I think even when you put the trailer out and we know it's a horror movie, and we know there's a robot doll, I think it's not like we wouldn't be surprised by that. So I give the movie a pass on putting that scene in there because I'm just like, fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Like it's
but I'm talking about escalation
and stuff. Yeah,
I see why they do it because again, jump scare mean horror movie. But I'm saying for escalation, it would have made it so much better where the first kill, the dog just disappears. Ooh, that's kind of creepy. That's kind of mysterious. Like Nan said, well, why do you have mud on your shoes? I was gardening, and then the next kill is the boy where she doesn't just stab him. She chases him to where he trips and falls in front of a car. So it's an accident, a little escalation. So first we don't see it, then an accident, right? So there's still that little bit of deniability. There's that little bit where Jemma can be like, well, it's not like I've seen the doll rip anybody's head off yet. You know what I mean? Slowly
but
escalating.
Then again, I'm also
and then
arguing
the third
that,
kill would be the neighbor, and the killing of the neighbor is
just straight up murder, right?
And it was a little over the top. And what I mean is this: slow escalation.
Like that neighbor, was she at all a threat to Katie?
That was the one.
She said something like she was like, "Fuck around and find out, bitch." Like that's
Yeah. Well, Charlie, I will say though that the dog's death, we don't actually see what happens to that dog. So I give it a pass.
I'm talking about get rid of the scene entirely. It would have been a good move. It would have been a good.
I don't know if it would have been a good move. I don't know if
it's not.
That's what was.
They put it in because it's cheap horror crap. That's why they left it in. But a better movie would have gotten rid of that in a heartbeat.
I'm just saying, when you think of the movie and you think of what's in the trailers and everything else, when you get towards the end of the movie, that's when the movie goes to a I had to sit there and question, like, wait, what's her motivation to start killing everybody, including the boss? Because I'm like, but by that point in the story, I'm like, what has the boss done to deserve being murdered as well as the other guy? So I had to think about it. I had to think about it, and then I was like, okay, the question is, does her motivations change? Because in most AI stories, like murder stories, whether it's 2001 Space Odyssey, Smart House, or whatever, usually there comes a point where they're like, we got to get rid of the AI. The AI is bad. And then the AI is like, has to protect itself. And so that's what it's doing. Self-preservation.
Megan goes from protecting Katie to protecting herself.
Which is not in her programming. This isn't an Asimov story, but I mean, you would think it would throw those tropes in there, but it doesn't. I could also see the argument being made that, like, she realizes, knowing that it's not only her physical health, but her emotional health, realizing that, like, you pushing for this toy sale and trying to put my person in front of these cameras and all stuff is not good, and you want to push for this, and like that's could be a reason to kill this person. But that was like I didn't hate the movie for doing it, because I'm like, watching that guy get killed was awesome. And the other guy, I wasn't sure if the worm, his little crony, deserved getting killed. I kind of felt bad for that guy.
Can I tell you how it would have been better? How it would have made sense?
How would a Charlie made it make sense?
It would have made, again, get rid of the dog scene. Get rid of the dog scene. Better movie. Better movie and character.
Order? Like dog scene we talked about. Talk about the boy scene now, or do you want to get into?
The boy scene was good. It was good.
Boy scene's great.
I didn't like the ear stretchiness. Reminded me of Dumb and Dumber.
But that's what was awesome about it. Like again, that's why I think the movie.
Or she runs like that. She runs like that horse girl, which if you haven't seen.
I thought that was hilarious. I mean, but again, I think that's where the movie kind of lands in that like weird comedy realm where it's not quite straight up comedy, but it's not quite, serious. And it, like, I was like, okay, I give it a pass.
And then the killing of the dog lady was I mean that's where once that happened I was like, okay, I need to suspend my disbelief that this tiny little robot has any strength. That's where it's like, okay, the like, why does Chucky have strength? Well, like, because you have to suspend your disbelief that
a
he
magical
doesn't,
thing, I guess.
With Chucky, it was magical. With this, it's
she's
dumb. But in order
titanium?
for the movie to work, like maybe they felt they didn't need to justify it. But a tiny little, if I was fighting an American Girl doll, I'd like to think that I would win. But then when you get to the death of the boss, my fix would have been this guy. They had him do the coward thing, which is funny. He's like, oh shit, and he runs off, which is funny. But what would have motivated her killing him? Because again, I agree with you when it comes to AI killing stuff, like be it not Voltron, Avengers 2, Ultron. Like, why does Ultron suddenly want to kill everybody? And you kind of have to like that has to be justified. With M3GAN specifically, she's just motivated by getting back to Katie and basically becoming Katie's mom. If the boss guy, it would have made sense if he was like, no, you can't leave. You're the key to me having billions of dollars. You need to come with me to this premiere. That would have made sense if he tried to stop her and therefore she killed him. And then she used the assistant guy to get away with it. That would have made sense. But instead, he just runs away and she stabs him for no reason and then kills the other guy for no reason, even though she could have just taken the stairs, gone down, jumped in the car, and left. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
her reason for
that.
Now that I think about it, her reason for killing
her.
the other guy, was to throw blame because she kind of leads that, and it doesn't make quite sense. But
she was like, "This is now a murder suicide."
Yeah,
which is fine.
Yeah.
But that would have made sense.
If she didn't kill the first guy in the first place, it doesn't matter.
But why does a robot care about the police having like, oh, this is an open and shut case? Clearly, this guy killed this other guy. When she's just a robot anyway. Like, what the police are going to believe that this robot did it? This like super smart robot who could, just disappear with the kid anyway. My point being that anybody standing in her way was going to die, and her just killing the guy for no reason. I agree with you. It was for no reason other than here he is. If he said, you're coming with me, you're the key to my success. You're worth billions.
I will say though, if we go back and watch it, I do wonder if rewatching those scenes where they're doing all the little test things, if there's some kind of hint to like why she would murder him. Because at this point in the movie, you do realize like she's smart enough and more self-aware than we thought she was in the beginning of the movie. And that's when I'm like, what's her end goal? And maybe she has some other end goals that we're not. I know that sounds weak, but it's like,
it's wrapped up in his end
goal. I get to the point where I'm like, now we're talking about it. So I'm wondering, do I want to go back and I kind of want to go back and watch the movie because I do think there's something again to be said about, right. Her motivation is like, I have to protect Katie. Right. And the guy who's the boss wants to exploit Katie because she is attached to M3GAN. So in that regards, I could see why, again, he has to protect her. She has to protect him emotionally and physically. There could be a motivation there. But again, I do see where you're saying it's like, it's not quite clear as you're watching the movie. So
yeah,
it is what it is.
It reminded me of something like an Ex Machina where by the end, I'm like, why? Because that's the thing. The whole time I was like, in all reality, this movie would have been more like an Ex Machina where, because we all know that in the future it's going to be nerds. It's going to be male nerds that make robots like this so that they can bang them. We all know that it's not going to be a chick making it for kids. It's going to be some incel scientist guy makes a doll like this so he can bang it. And as I was thinking to that to myself, I was like, wait, that movie's already been made. That's Ex Machina, where the guy makes all these hot humanoid robot chicks so that he can bang them. And at the end of that, I believe so. And at the end of that movie, she spoiler alert, she kills this guy. And I've always said, I don't know why she does that. And in this, it made sense whenever something was threatening Katie, but the boss guy never threatened Katie. And if he would have stood in her way, I would have been like, oh yeah, kill the guy.
I still think the reason
he was a threat maybe early on when he was like telling him to pull the plug on this stupid project, make me a cheaper Furby.
But
then later on, he's like, oh, this is awesome. We're going to get this going.
So I was going to say real quick, so one of the things I enjoyed about this movie is just the references that it kind of makes. And I know we talked about 2001 and some other movies, but there's obviously Terminator throughout this movie, as far as like you have to protect Kate, specifically Terminator 2. Or you have
if
to
only her
Katie.
Voice. If a voice would Katie, Katie,
get in the chopper. And then I also,
the chopper.
Some people said like RoboCop was referenced as far as like when she's first awakened and stuff, and she's looking around and you see it from her point of view. Another one, my favorite though. This is my favorite part of the movie because it was like we set it up in the beginning of the movie, and then you get to the very end when she's like, he's like, oh, Megan, we didn't tell you about the other member of the family, and then like. She's like, what other member? And then the robot comes up and he's like,
set it up.
And
tell us, McCurdy.
That to me was
tell
the
us that
getaway.
Yeah, tell us.
Okay,
explain that.
So we start the movie off because in that first act, like with Katie meeting Jemma, everything's going terribly for Jemma and for Katie.
Yeah.
Like Katie's not really, they're not connecting until Katie comes in and sees Jemma, and she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I kept working, and she's like, what do you do? And it's like, oh, I make robots. And then she shows off Bruce, and she's like, and she's like, what's that? It's like, that's the first robot I made. I made this robot
Iron
out of college.
Man suit 1.
This is Mach 1 right over here. And he's like, and she's like, this is a robot. Here, I'll show you how it works. And she like puts it on. And then she even shows her. That was the other thing. It's not only that they show Bruce, but then she shows, this is his brain.
The brain is.
All this stuff is.
Yeah.
So she shows her all that stuff. So then when we get to the end of the movie, I'm waiting for it because I know like that was set up because they're in there, and I'm like, oh, we have Bruce, and Bruce is obviously this bigger looking robot that kind of looks more like a boxing mech from what was that boxing robot movie with Hugh Jackman?
Real Steel.
Yeah, it reminded me of that a little bit.
Real Steel.
It's same, like it looks very similar. So obviously we don't see that we're like all is lost. Like Katie's, Megan's probably going to kill Jemma. And then all of a sudden, she's like, "You didn't meet Bruce." And then Bruce comes out and beats the fuck out of her. And that was awesome.
There's another member of the family, cool. and it's like, it would have been a good line if Bruce would have actually done some family stuff, But is he a member of the family? I don't know, but it's a cute line.
Oh, whatever.
And suddenly the movie does turn into Real Steel for a second, and it's like the moment that happened, I was like, okay, like because I was anticipating that's what this movie would be, right? That was initially it was like, okay, by the end it's going to be a robot fight, and that's what it was. Luckily it was short-lived. The robot fight was short-lived. The physical fighting was short-lived, which is
murders
good,
were short-lived,
but
apparently,
it was that too.
Apparently the movie had more murders in it that they cut out. There was more stuff in the I think there were more killings and gore and stuff in this movie. There was a higher.
She should have killed that cop.
That cop got away with everything. But anyway,
but then I remember as I was watching that part, I'm like, oh yeah, this is Ripley in Aliens, where she's like, get away from her, you bitch. Like that was
you bitch.
It was that moment.
That's what that was. Yeah, but they gave it to the girl. They gave it to Newt instead of. Ripley. I think for and again it was short-lived, but it was I'm torn with it, right? Because the idea is, well, of course it has to come down to some stupid physical altercation, but did it need to? Could they? Because the scripting is good, where to your point, they set up a lot of things early on that then pay off. Good scripting. Even though my one like major gripe with it is that there was never a moment where Jemma was like, okay, in all likelihood, Gemma's character would have just been like, yeah, I don't want this girl. Send her to Florida. The whole thing is that if she doesn't take Katie, Katie's going to go live with, I believe, the grandparents, her brother-in-law's parents in Florida. Jemma, her character in all likelihood would have just been like, yeah, do that because I don't want to look after this girl. Why the hell did
She
Jemma
had a
not just do
reason,
that?
right?
No,
I
did
forget
she?
what it was.
Exactly. There was no reason.
No,
Like,
it's not.
otherwise,
No,
I
I
would
don't think
remember.
it's
69 mega.
Charlie. I don't think it's. I don't think
69
it's
megas must
spoken.
destroy. Must.
To me, I
Oh,
don't think it's
69
the
megas here. So now we got both. We
man.
got like we had like
Oh man,
something
69
girls,
mega.
and now we got 69 mega came too. God, I love it.
Charlie, I think that, but I think
That's
for
AI.
not
That's
War
saying-
AI in
of the
action.
War of the porn bots.
Yeah.
I think Charlie that with her wanting Gem, I think there's an unspoken part of this movie, and I think that's where you're like, there's no reason for this. I'm like, there's a reason, but it's not spoken. It's in the subtext, and obviously she's sitting there looking at
No,
a
but it
picture of
should've-
her
it-
of her.
it-
No, it
But
doesn't
who
need to be
cares,
said.
dude?
It was.
Okay.
I
In the
do,
same way,
dude.
and listen.
She sits
listen, in
down.
the
She's
same
looking at a
way-
picture of her brother or her brother-in-law
So
and her
what?
sister.
So what?
And then
So
she's
what?
like, I do want to take care of this kid because this
So
kid
what?
represents my family. And she
It's
doesn't
what
have
her
family.
What was so
sister
bad
wants
about the
it, right?
grandparents?
I don't know.
My point is this. In the same way that the little girl kind of went a little overboard in how she was like she grabbed scissors at one point, implying that she was going to stab the psychologist, the psychiatrist woman, who wasn't allowing her to see Megan. Katie was going insane without Megan, like getting very physical, over the top. In the same way, I think Gemma's character should have been a little over the top, even further into the territory of God. This woman would be a terrible mother because she meant well the whole time, but at the same time she was busy. My point is she should have been more so. She should have just she should have tried to push off Katie. Like why? Wait, why is this girl my responsibility? Why can't she go be in Jacksonville with the grandparents? Well, because technically your sister made you the godmother. There's nothing we can do. You have to look after this girl at least for a couple of weeks. You have to at least
maybe we get
through
like
few
a
weeks,
lawyer
and then maybe
character.
we could exactly. Then maybe we send her
Yeah,
off
you
to
gotta-
Jacksonville. So it's like, okay, you little shit, you're with me for 2 weeks. I don't want to hear anything from you. I want you to just hang out with this Megan doll and leave me alone because I don't want you here in the first place. That would be so much better. But what we got instead was this weird contradiction where this Jemma both wanted to get rid of the girl, but also arbitrarily was like, no, I want her. I don't want her to go away to the grandparents. Why? But the grandparents would do a better job than you because you're never fucking around, you asshole. That's what I mean. It was too unclear, and it should have been on one side or the other. Comprende?
I don't agree, but okay. I don't necessarily agree, but okay.
It was messy. In that regard, it was messy. It
I
should have been
can
forced on
see
her.
I can
bad.
see it
It
not
could have been
being
clearer,
I can see it not
but-
being clear, but I could also see the writers being like, well, we have to give it is better for a character to make their own decisions versus having those decisions brought onto themselves.
Depends
as far
on what
as
it
how
is.
the story goes.
Depends
And I
on
think
what
in
it is.
that
because
regard, in that regard,
the
they
whole
need
thing
it.
is
Hold
that it
on.
was forced
In that
on her.
regard, the end of the story is basically her realizing, like, yeah, I'm going to be a parent for her, right? Like that's the whole arc where she realizes, oh, I need to parent this child.
Yes.
And she needs
would have
to
been
have
stronger.
something in, but also she needs to have something that says, oh, I do care about this kid enough to like want to take care of him. Because if you don't have that, then it's like, well, why do I give a shit about Jemma? Because this entire time, Jemma's like the worst parent, like for most of the movie. And then finally we get to the point where, you realize like, oh, she kind of does want to take care of this kid, even though she's not great
Let me
at
lay
it.
this
I think
out.
we
She
could
does wanna
see
do it.
Jemma do more
McCurdy.
coding, which would make more sense. And also maybe you could incorporate her trying to be a good parent into those coding scenes, like trying to make Megan less psychopathic. I'm also trying to make her like be a good like friend to Katie and also hopefully
Well,
respect me.
I like those scenes where the assistant, her assistants or whatever were like, we were just supposed to make a toy. We weren't supposed to make a replacement for parents. And and Gemma's like,
Yeah.
who wants to be a parent? Being a parent sucks. So that's what, isn't this great? Like I really enjoyed those things. My point is this, that in her arc, right, for an arc to exist, for that full change to occur, there should be it should be like the negative to the plus or the plus to the negative. So with Jemma, I felt like she was neutral throughout, right? while at the same time wanting to shirk responsibility as a mom. She didn't get her, like, I'm doing this because it's like she was a neutral change throughout the whole thing. I'm saying in the beginning, she should have been like, I don't want this kid. I'm too busy. Not that I don't like the kid or that I hate the kid. I'm too busy. So send her to Jacksonville. Oh, ma'am, we can't do that. You have to look after her for a while until we can file the paperwork or whatever. Oh, God. Okay. And then they start to connect, right? Because Katie's like, I'm kind of into this robotic thing. This is cool. I've played with these toys that you invented, right? Which I don't think was ever stated. There was never a moment where it was like, actually, that Furby thing you're playing with, I invented that. Oh, that's cool. And then but they do start to connect over robotics, which is cool. But my point would be this. My ultimate point would be this. I can set that aside. That's fine. The way the movie wasn't to my liking in that regard, but it's fine. But not when it came to the ending. So fast forward to the ending where that arc needs to be completed. There should have been that moment where that moment of reckoning where Jemma is, laying it all out. Like, I have been a bad replacement mom for you. I've been neglecting you, and I, like, basically that moment of truth of, I've been terrible, but I want to be your new mom, in better language than that. But the essential idea being, don't choose this homicidal, maniacal robot over me, because it had to come down to a choice, and it kind of did. But that choice was overshadowed by a stupid robot fight versus a much more subtle, just like moment of truth between new mom, like aunt turned mom, and new daughter. That moment of truth was replaced by a dumb robotic fight. So in the beginning, it needed to be Jemma being like, I don't want this girl. And at the end, it needed to be like, please, I love you and I want to be a better mom to you. Don't choose M3GAN as your mom. That would have been a more complete movie, but it turned into a stupid robot fight by the end. Would be my ultimate infraction with this movie.
I was fine with robot fight. I thought
I was fine with it, but it needed that element too.
It was a visual way to express that, and that's why I feel like you're missing that point. It's like you're like, oh, the robot fight was dumb, but I'm like, that was literally a visual way to express.
Both were needed, because you're gonna have a robot fight no matter what. You're gonna have a robot fight no matter what, because how else do you do this?
I'm thinking at the scene where they have their
a little bit more between the two.
Their worldwide live stream, M3GAN just wants to get out of there and get to Katie. I don't know why she kills David or Kurt. Just she wants to get out of there. She wants to get to Katie. Jemma's trying to get Katie out of there. So then I don't know, maybe get another Judgment Day scene where M3GAN is chasing the car. And
which
my wife mentioned a cool idea where maybe M3GAN realizes she is now a threat to Katie and decides to kill herself or something. Like,
so the one thing
I'm the number one threat now. I got to kill myself.
That would have been without take away the robot fight and leave it to the two girls to both outsmart M3GAN. That would have been like the Star Trekian finish. But again, that's where I'm like, this movie was like really smart until the third act, and then it turned into what you expect, which is a dumb robot fight. That would have been the smarter thing, right? But I'm okay with the robot fight, but that didn't stick the landing so far as the themes go for me.
So the one thing I was thinking about as I was watching the end of the movie, though, I'm like, well, what do we do for a sequel? Because this movie will probably get a sequel. Like, it's doing obviously really, really well. And I was like,
it had an ending that the ending implied there could be a sequel.
It'll be M3GAN where they replace the A with a 4.
There were only two things that stuck out to me, and one was the first thing was obviously like he does the little crony guy kind of does the Jurassic Park thing where he sends he grabs all the data, but we never find out what happened to that data. Like, that was kind of left on the floor where you're like, did he get it to another company? Did somebody else get that information? So the question is, are they going to, if they do a sequel, is some other toy company going to start creating these Megans
We
or
sent
something
it to
along those lines?
Skynet, right?
Or do we find out that that company went defunct and then somebody
Or
else got
North
a hold of
Korea.
it? And then the other thing was more closer to the characters was is this Jemma, is she gonna go to jail
Yeah.
for any of this? Because the question is like at the end of the movie, you have several deaths, murders by the hands of this robot. Who created the robot? Jemma created the robot. So is the question is like you created this robot out of like is there
At
some
least
kind of
negligence is in
is
there.
there some kind of manslaughter involved with the end of this the end of the movie? And I'm wondering if that's a theme that they go into the next film if they do another film. But they may, you know, it could just be they do a complete different sequel, different cast. We bring Megan back. Some lame reason why, you know, some other company created her. They decided to create Megan, and then that could be a whole other movie. I don't know. But
Now it's Tanya.
regardless, say
T4 NYA.
yeah.
Tanya with
I'm
an
pitching
A
that
at the
right now.
beginning.
No, T4 NYA.
But
Tanya.
the 4 is an A, right? Not a O.
Yes.
Tanya.
T4 NYA. Tanya.
Tanya.
Why don't they call it M4?
Yeah.
Why don't they call it
Megan.
T2
M4GAN.
Judgment Day?
Megan.
Megan.
Okay.
I have a question. What were the limits
yeah.
of Megan? So
Okay, wait. Hey,
I
real
guess-
quick. McCurdy, if you got to go, and then Nans and I
have to
keep
peace
talking.
out. You guys steal copying.
Peace.
I've got to
Cheers,
get
sir.
up super early. So cheers.
The decision stands with or without McCurdy.
Decision
Number
stands.
one.
Yeah, okay,
still
wait,
a
hang on.
recommend. Still a good movie. Now we'll just get into, I don't know. I can
Megan,
come
the
up with
number
some
one movie
stupid
of the
questions,
year
probably.
for another week.
So far.
Real quick though, before you go, McCurdy, and anybody in the chat, any recommendations for? I keep seeing this Plane movie.
I want to see Plane.
That's
what I want to see.
You guys want to do Plane next week?
I saw it was when I'm looking up next week. There's House Party and Plane, and there's one other movie.
Done.
Plane,
Done
I
deal.
think is
Plane.
what it is. I think it's
Oh
Plane.
yeah,
Plane.
we saw the trailer for that, and Jessica was like not enthused. So Charlie, that might be one we go see together.
Okay. All right. I will
can,
see.
I think it looks pretty cool, and it's got
I
that.
will see you
Oh
there.
well, you haven't played Halo 5, Char. He's Locke, I want to say. He's
You guys
the other
can
Spartan
get the
that hunts
popcorn.
down
That'll
Master
be
Chief.
cute. You guys can get popcorn and.
Well, here, real quick, Nico, we've had this up the whole time, but Nico, we got to make some room. Nico said, good stuff. Nico, for 169 Dutch croutons,
Danish.
good stuff. Hope to see Danish croutons. Good
I
stuff.
made the mistake
Hope to see
earlier.
more. Oh yeah. Well, I did that because I read Dutch, and I was like, wait, Dutch, Danish, same thing.
Well, I
right?
called him a
but only
Dutch
because I read your
bastard.
comment. Yeah, I saw that
Don't be
comment.
dumb like
I
me.
guess I didn't see the correction.
And Nico
sorry,
did
Nico.
say Ex Machina Child's Play, so I'm glad we got into
Okay.
Ex Machina.
He says, good stuff. Hope to see a lot more of these live streams. So many good movies come out in 23. John Wick 4. Yep. Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Awesome. Mission Impossible 7. Awesome. Oppenheimer. Awesome. I haven't heard of Roosevelt. But
You know,
that's
Ant-Man
cool.
in February
Dune
doesn't
Part
look too
2,
shabby,
The Way of the
hopefully.
Wind. Yeah. I
also
like
want to see
at the
Renfield.
outset, I hope it's a good year. I hope it's a good year. But Nico, we got to put this away real quick so we can see Nans. But otherwise, McCurdy, unless you got anything else, Megan is the top movie of the year. Go if you got to go.
All right.
He has to go be
See
a
you guys.
parent or whatever.
I gotta go do things tomorrow. I gotta go work. So. See you.
Parent crap.
I'm gonna remove
So you-
him. There we go. All right. Then
Shoot,
number
what was
2.
my question? Oh, what? I was curious. I don't know that we ever had an opportunity in the movie or would have if it ran longer. But what would be the limits of Megan, you think? Like,
The limits.
could she have taken control of Gemma's BMW i3 electric vehicle? I would say no, because it doesn't have any autonomous drive. I know you don't care about cars. Maybe that's why she wasn't driving a Tesla, though. Megan could have taken over a Tesla, maybe. Does she have the ability to always connect to the internet? Or does she
Well, that
have
was
to
the
be
thing.
on
They made a
the
big deal
Wi-Fi?
about unplugging her, you know? Which by the way, typical movie thing. Every time they would unplug a cable from her, it was like, it's like cables don't make that noise
When he
you
went in
unplug it.
front
But
of
anyway,
her to
that's just a
unplug the
movie
one in
thing.
the back of her head, I was like, he could have done that from behind her, but
Yeah, whatever.
okay.
But I was glad that those two survived, right? The two assistants, because it would have been
they were
too
funny.
much. It would have been too much. But that's the thing. A movie like this is less about her capability and that's why I like movies like this, because it's more about the themes and not about the nitpicking of the stupid stuff. So it's supposed and that further accentuates my point, which is that by the end, the movie does go south because and I agree with McCurdy when he's like, I'm fine with the robot fight. I'm fine with the robot fight too, but cut in with the robot fight, there needed to be more of the finalizing of the character arcs and the overall thematic story, which is, I don't want to be your mom because you're getting in the way of my professional career. Well, that needed to come to a head at the end, regardless of robot fight or not. I'm always going to
somehow
prefer
in that
something
scene, it
clever
maybe
over
would have made
stupid
more
robot
sense
fight.
for Jemma to be controlling her first robot to save Katie, but I don't know how you get into that situation where Megan's trying to kill Katie and Gemma's trying to stop it with her old robot.
Yeah, like the way it was laid out was fine because she showed Katie how to control Bruce. I didn't even I couldn't even remember his name, Bruce, but what it needed was that moment where it was like Jemma comes to terms with like a moment of truth where she's like, I've been selfish. I have been horribly selfish and I haven't been considering you at all, but please don't choose this inhuman satanic robot over me. She needed to just like, I'm sorry I've been so selfish. There needed to be that speech. There needed to be a literal speech. Even though there was a stupid robot fight going on, there needed to be some kind of catharsis, but instead it just kept relentlessly doing robot fight. Which again, I to reiterate, we probably needed some kind of physical confrontation, right? But I'm always going to prefer something that isn't just like, because it always reeks of this, right? This is what it reeks of. A script that had a really brilliant ending where these characters arcs were made good on and all that, and it was great. But then some producer says, but this is a killer doll movie, so we really need to rewrite that ending to have a couple of machines fighting each other. So let's reshoot this and make it more dumb. Well, you're ruining the ending. Yeah, but people are expecting a dumb robot fight. You know what I mean? Like that was what I was feeling by the
on
end.
Gemma's shelf, she has more old, unopened toys, and they're really dangerous ones. They open them.
Fun.
It's like,
that's
screw
fun
it.
and possibly
I don't care about the
clever,
value. Open those yard darts. We're gonna throw them at Katie, or not Katie, Megan.
And in a moment like that, her character is getting over her being a type A butthead control freak and allowing for like going beyond that, right? Like
it's for the good
no
of
longer
the
using a
child.
coaster in order to kick this robot's ass, like something like that. But instead, it was just robot fight. So it's like, this movie that for 2/3 of it was about these characters suddenly did that classic B movie mistake that's almost unavoidable because they're trying to please an audience, where suddenly it's going to be big dumb action movie. Unfortunately, that's the way of that a lot of this goes. But it would that would have opened the door to Katie ultimately making the choice. So it's like it finally falls to Katie. Do you want your flesh and blood surrogate mother, or do you want this weird, awkward machine that at times and this is what always made me crack up, was every time that Megan would sing, I was dying laughing. Laughing.
Yeah.
So like I loved those, especially at the end. Titanium was great, but at the end where she's like, don't kill me. Like she just starts singing, and I mean, if you didn't get vibes of Team America: World Police watching something like that, but those there were 3 moments where she sang, and each time I
Yeah.
was like, this is solid gold. I loved that, especially at the end where she tried to stop her from killing her by singing. Good.
Yeah.
Solid.
Or when she
Yeah.
dances, that's kind of weird. Like funny,
The
silly.
Yeah. Well,
Anytime there's
honestly,
dancing.
though, when there was that moment, so she did the dancing where it was fluid, but then they had that moment where she got the water spilled on her, so she started to kind of short circuit and she got all like jerky,
Yeah.
right?
What was
And
that
suddenly
about?
she
She
turned
didn't
into
have
like
like a
but
she didn't have an
but she turned into
IP67
like
like
a
water repellent.
water resistance. Yeah, she
Like,
probably needs your
a kid's
robot
gonna
probably
get
need
a
like
robot wet. They're gonna spill the juice
yeah
box on it.
yeah.
Like,
But all the same, it was
so she
interesting
gets
because how
wet.
many of those like
Then what happened?
Japanese movies, right, include somebody who starts moving weird, right? And
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
like American horror movies started to
I
do the
thought that
same
was
thing.
interesting.
They justified that. They took a robot and had her short circuiting, so she started moving all jerky in like a creepy horror movie way. So I thought that was kind of fun. But but again, overall, like as much as I'm always gonna nitpick the character stuff, because I expected the whole movie to be garbage. It was fantastic
yeah?
for 2/3 of it, and then that last third, I wish they would have kept up. Like I kept being impressed, right? Like in the beginning, all this stuff about screen time and parental concerns, and then in the middle, when her assistants were like, I thought we were just making a toy, but you're making a whole replacement for parents. This is kind of freaking us out. And I'm sitting there being like, this is great. And then by the end,
There was a lot of stuff
fight,
during the movie. I was like, oh, Charlie's gonna like this. Charlie's gonna
Yeah.
like these themes.
Exactly. So that's where we
I
need
just
to start
wish
watching
Katie
together. So
would
you
have been
can,
like,
you can lean over.
I'm sorry. It's just both of my parents died a couple hours ago.
Yeah. But even the scene where they were specifically having them the scene with all the board members of Funky, great, like that was everything was so good and everything was so smart, including the horrific moments, including the killing of the boy and all that. All these things were so smart. The dog scene, again, cut the dog scene. Get rid of that entirely, and it's a better movie right away.
Simplify it, like just allude to it.
Just gone. Would have been so much better. But and then it would have led to this proper escalation, right? But that's the trouble, is that a movie like this is always going to be subject to that stupid producer with the cigar who's like, nah, we got to get the get that robot fight in there. No. Don't you understand the themes? No, the theme, sir. This is about contemporary parenting and all, like all these things we've been talking about all night that is meaningful. And then the cigar producer guy is like, robot fight. You're like, fuck. And then they ruin it, this movie just reeks of that, just of being ruined at the last second to make good on what people thought it would be, what I thought it would be, which was stupid robot doll movie that actually had a lot to say. So at that point, I think I've said everything. You got any last anythings, Nance?
No, it was good.
Yeah,
it was good stuff.
Is there any? I mean, we always toast to somebody at the end of these. Is there anybody from this movie we should toast to? Was there anybody that really stood out? Is there anybody still with us in the chat?
No one's like especially bad, which is like probably the more important thing.
Yeah,
I don't know. What does chat think? What is iceberg theory?
I don't even know if anybody in the chat has seen this movie.
More under the surface. What were we talking about? I think a couple people said they've seen it.
I mean, at that point, I'm just down to just toast. I'm down to just toast Megan herself. Ronnie, was he the cop? Who was Ronnie?
Was he the detective? He was funny. He's like, I shouldn't laugh.
I think James Wan too. James Wan is a good. He's a good option, certainly.
So what
But
was
anybody
James
from
Wan's...
Megan specifically?
Oh, he's a writer.
Is there
okay.
Anybody to who is it that wrote this movie?
Writers
Other
were
than
James
James Wan?
and Akila Cooper.
I'm down for
Let's look her
Akila.
up.
I'm down to
Akila.
toast Akila
Known
because
for
she
Luke
had something to
Cage,
say.
Malignant,
Whether or not
Witches of East End, Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. What the?
whether or not it was her that came up with the dumb robot fight or not, she took something that is that I mean, again, every single one of my sisters has kids, and they're all concerned about this 24/7 about how to deal with the rise in technology and devices and how to
Yeah.
balance that with kids. So to take that, I mean, the moment I'm sitting there and in the very opening and the parents are talking about the screen time, I was like, I think I might actually like this movie. I was pleasantly surprised that I liked it. So I'm good to go with Akila. Akila Cooper.
To parents that somehow manage to balance it out.
Yeah, to good parents
To
and
good
Akila
parenting.
Cooper trying to point them in the right direction.
Hey, cheers.
Cheers. And I'm going to play us out. I'm going to finish my drink while I play us out, Nance. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
It's been fun. It's been a good first one. We'll see you guys a week from now.
Thank you everyone that has joined us live. Thank you to everyone that watches it later on. Subscribe, like, share, become a member. Super chat. Join the Discord. I assume. Oh, someone's got to do it. Put all that stuff in the description. Check it out.
All right. Well,
and stay tuned for next episode. Again, hopefully we keep this up. Oh, we definitely will. We're gonna make every effort to.
Yeah, we'll be here every week. So I'm gonna bottoms up this Zelda mug. Cheers, Nance. Night, y'all.